Hi everyone, it's very nice to see you again with another video. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to teach compound complex sentences to your students. In my previous videos, I talk about how to teach simple sentences to your students, compound sentences, and how to teach complex sentences to your students. Actually, compound complex sentence means it has characteristics of both compound and complex sentences. So it's always better to teach compound complex sentences to your students after you're teaching them simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. There are lots of ways that you can teach this to your students, but this is how I did. This is how I teach compound complex sentences to my students. Let's look what compound complex sentences are. As I told you earlier, it has characteristics of both compound and complex sentences. That means it has at least two independent clauses, just like in a compound sentence, and at least one dependent clause, just like in complex sentences. So it's like compound plus complex sentence, at least two independent clauses connected by a coordinating conjunction. We can call it fanboys, and one dependent clause connected to it by a subordinating conjunction. So in a compound complex sentence, you can find at least two independent clause, at least one dependent clause, one coordinating conjunction, and at least one subordinating conjunction. For example, Ronnie watched the video, or we can say Ronnie watched the movie because her sister had recommended it, but she didn't really like it. So let's analyze this sentence. Ronnie watched the movie is an independent clause because her sister had recommended it. So because her sister had recommended is the subordinating clause, and it is connected by a subordinating conjunction because. But she didn't really like it. She didn't really like it. That is another independent clause connected with the coordinating conjunction but to the other independent clause. So let's look at the example again. Ronnie watched the movie because her sister had recommended it, but she didn't really like it. So in this example, we can see two independent clauses and one dependent clauses, and we can see one coordinating conjunction and one subordinating conjunction. So first one, Ronnie watched the movie is an independent clause because her sister had recommended it is a subordinating clause. She didn't like it is another independent clause, and it is connected by the coordinating conjunction but to the sentence. So you can use 5-6 examples like this, and you can help them to analyze the sentence. You can ask them to find the independent clauses in that sentence, to find the dependent clause in that sentence, to underline the coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunction. When you use like 5-6 examples for compound complex sentences, the concept will go to their mind. and they will learn how to analyze a sentence. Some students like to keep their sentences simple because they think that if they create longer sentences, they are more likely to make mistakes. This is not right. Give them confidence in writing different sentence patterns and sentence types in their writing. So let's help them to develop skills in their academic writing. Let's teach them how to add variety to their writing. Adding adjectives is one of the best ways to develop or improve your sentence. Adjective can add some color, some beauty to your sentence, and it will add a vigor to a dull sentence. For example, if I take this sentence as an example, the wind blew across the river. It's a very simple sentence, but if we try to add some adjectives to this sentence, it will add some beauty, it will add some color to this sentence. The strong wind blew across the big river. We just only add the adjective strong and the other adjective is big. So it gave some vigor to the sentence. Now the sentence is not dull as the first one. Let's look at the example again. The wind blew across the river. Now let's add some adjectives to this sentence. The strong wind blew across the big river. Can you see the difference? Okay. Another way to add variety to your sentence is by adding prepositional phrases. So simply, what is a prepositional phrase? A prepositional phrase consists of a preposition and an object. That can be a noun or a pronoun. For example, we can take this sentence. He works in a hospital. He works in a hospital. In a hospital is a prepositional phrase. So let's help our children to minimize their sentence problems in their writing. So earlier I told you that we can help them to develop their sentences by adding prepositional phrases and by adding adjectives to their sentences. When we teach them how to develop a sentence, our next step should be helping them to identify the sentence problems in their writing. In English, there are 4 main sentence problems. First one is fragments. Next, run-ons. The other common problem is comma splices. And lastly, rambling sentences. So let's look at the first problem, that is fragments. Fragments is an incomplete sentence. Actually, simply, when students write their sentences, we feel that there are something missing. The sentence is not complete. For example, the garage at the end of the road. Children will like that. So, the meaning is incomplete. We know that there's a garage at the end of the road, but we don't know the owner of that garage. So how can we make this sentence a complete one? The garage at the end of the road belongs to Edwards. Or we can say the garage at the end of the road belongs to Pereira's. So it gives a complete meaning that there's a garage at the end of the road and the owner of that garage is Edwards. Sometimes these sentences lack a subject or a verb, maybe other essential part of a sentence. So we can correct this sentence by adding that missing part, the verb, maybe the subject or the other essential part to that sentence. Sometimes fragments contains subject and a verb, but they are dependent clauses. So we know that if there's a subject and a verb in a sentence, normally it's a complete sentence. But we can find fragments in their writing because the sentence consists a subject and a verb, but that sentence is the sentence is a dependent clause. It's not an independent clause. So because of this, the thought is incomplete. The thought that you are going to give in this sentence is incomplete. The meaning is incomplete. We can make this incomplete sentence to a complete one by making this sentence, this dependent clause to an independent clause. Or we can make it a combined clause. So if a child writes a sentence with a subject and verb, but it doesn't give the full meaning, if it doesn't give the full thought, we can ask that child to make that sentence an independent clause. Or we can ask that child to combine that sentence to another clause. So if it is a dependent clause, we can ask the child to combine it to an independent clause. By that way, we can make this sentence a complete one. So that is one way to get rid of fragments. Let's take an example for that. After the rain started, that's a sentence one of my child wrote when I was doing this lesson today. After the rain started. This is a fragment because this is a dependent clause. So I asked that child, do you get a full meaning by reading this sentence? So when the child read this sentence, he also noticed that something is missing. So I encouraged that child to find how he can fix this problem. The rain started, period. So it is an independent clause. That is one way. So the other way is, after the rain started, comma, the roads became slippery. So what did we do? After the rain started, that's our dependent clause, and we add another clause to it. That is the independent clause. The roads became slippery. After the rain started, comma, the road became slippery. So what did we do? We add a coordinating conjunction to the dependent clause, and we connected that dependent clause with a comma to the independent clause. Let's read the sentence again. After the rain started, comma, the roads became slippery. So now it is a full sentence. We can have the full thought, full meaning from that sentence. Let's take another example. Noodles all over the table. This is also a fragment. It lacks a verb. Let's make it a complete sentence. Noodles flew all over the table. Now it's a complete sentence. I hope that you got an idea how to teach fragments to your students. It is not necessary to tell this is a sentence fragment, but you can talk about the sentence with your students and you can ask questions. Do you get a full meaning from this sentence? If they say no, then you can help them to make it a complete sentence. So as I told you earlier, the next common sentence problem is run-on. So what is a run-on? A run-on sentence is two or more sentences joined without adequate punctuations or connecting words. So we see some children write very long sentences. There are more than 2 or 3 sentences joined together, but we cannot see proper punctuation marks or connecting words in that sentence. That is called run-on. That means a sentence lacks the necessary structure to link its idea together. Typically, a run-on sentence contains 2 independent clauses incorrectly linked to each other. It is like 2 sentences have crashed together, maybe without punctuation or wrong punctuation. Let's look at an example for run-on sentence. Run-on sentences are very common among our students. So I will take this one as an example. I was hungry, I ate lunch. They will just write these 2 sentences together without any punctuation mark. So this simple becomes unclear to the reader. So let's help them to correct this run-on in their writing. They can write, I was hungry, full stop, I ate lunch. You can put a period. So what is the next way that you can correct this sentence? I was hungry, semicolon, I ate lunch. That's another way to correct this sentence. I was hungry, comma, so I ate lunch. So there are different ways to correct run-ons. 2 sentences that the child has not separated with an end punctuation mark or has not joined with a conjunction. That is the basic thing that they have done here. That's the mistake they have done here. We call them run-ons. Run-on, as I told you earlier, run-ons are very common mistake that they are doing in their writing, and it's very easy to correct, especially in their early stage of learning how to write English or the formal writing. When child get to know, oh, this is the mistake that I have done, they will automatically correct it next time. We must not tell them, oh, you have made a run-on. That's not important. Just we have to tell the student to find the mistake. You can ask them to read it aloud. Then they will hear, oh, it doesn't give a proper meaning. What has happened? Then they will try to analyze the sentence and find the mistake. So let's move on to the other sentence problem. We call it comma splice. A comma splice is a special kind of run-on sentence. 2 independent clauses are joined, connected, or we can say spliced by a comma. Unfortunately, the comma is not strong enough to do this. I will explain it again. A comma splice is a special kind of run-on sentence. Two independent clauses are joined or connected. We can tell spliced by a comma. Unfortunately, a comma is not strong enough to do this. Independent clauses must join by a semicolon. Or we can put a period in between those independent clauses. Or we can connect these two independent clauses by a comma and a conjunction, coordinating conjunction. By that we can make this sentence a compound sentence. So there are three main ways to correct comma splices. First one is put a period in between of two independent clauses, or we can put a semicolon in between two independent clauses, and the other way is to put a comma and add a coordinating conjunction in between those independent clauses and make it a compound sentence. Let's take an example. I enjoyed cooking a lot. Comma, seafood is my favorite cuisine. How can we correct this sentence? We know that there's a mistake. The comma is not strong enough to give the full meaning, so it's a comma splice. So I will correct my sentence like this. I enjoyed cooking a lot, comma, and seafood is my favorite cuisine. As we have two independent clauses, we can combine these two sentences without a comma too, but when I teach my students, I prefer to add a comma and add and in between these two independent clauses. I enjoyed cooking a lot, comma, and seafood is my favorite cuisine. The next main problem is rambling sentences. When I teach English to my students, I saw this problem a lot in my students. What is a rambling sentence? A rambling sentence happens when a child connected several sentences with the word and. It's kind of overusing the word and, the conjunction and. Children think the best way to make a long sentence is to connect them by using the word and. This is not right. So once again, I will tell. A rambling sentence happens when a child connects several sentences using and. So how can we correct this error? It's very easy. Let's help them to correct this problem. We can ask them to remove some ends and use a period to make them smaller sentences. Next, we can ask them to put a semicolon in between these independent clauses, independent sentences. So the first one is we can ask them to remove some ends and we can use periods to make smaller sentence, or we can ask them to use semicolon in between them. So there's another way to do that. We can use a comma and a coordinating conjunction to connect these sentences. Finally, we can use a subordinating conjunction to make it a complex sentence. So children can add period or a full stop. They can use semicolon in between them. They can use a comma and a coordinating conjunction, or they can make it a subordinating conjunction, and the child can add independent clause to a subordinating clause. I hope that you got some kind of idea about how to teach compound complex sentences to your students. Without stopping there, you got an idea how to help their writing, how to help to develop their sentences by adding adjectives and prepositional phrases. They are the simple ways to develop their sentences. And apart from that, you learned what are the main mistakes that you can find in their writing. So in this series of videos, I did how to teach simple sentences, how to teach complex sentences, how to teach compound sentences, and how to teach compound complex sentences. And I talk about the ways that you can help your children to develop their writing, at the same time to help them to identify their sentence problems, fragments, run-ons, comma splices, and rambling sentences. When I was teaching to my students as an ESL teacher, I always try to help them to analyze their writing, analyze their sentences. That way, they can get a clear idea about their academic writing skill. I promise that if you try this with your students, you can help them to develop their academic writing, or you can help them their formal writing. So I hope that you got some kind of idea to help your students. I hope to do more videos on grammar, and I hope to do some videos on how to develop vocabulary in your children using different techniques. So as ESL teachers, let's try this with our students. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope to see you again with another important topic. Bye for now.